I love old sayings, especially old sayings that are kind of funny. Let me share just a few with you. Here's one. This is an old Quaker saying. All the world is mad save me and thee, and sometimes I wonder about thee. How about this one? Anyone who doesn't think there are two sides to an argument is probably in one. A bulldog can whip a skunk, true, but sometimes it's not worth it. Now, you could apply that to a lot of things right there. You may be right, you may get your way, but do you really want to? A clear conscience is usually the sign of a bad memory. I'm good. Yeah, you're not remembering. A closed mouth gathers no feet. I wish I could remember that one. A diplomat is one who thinks twice before saying nothing. This is all for the ladies here, okay? A man's got to do what a man's got to do. A woman must do what he can't. I just want you to like me. All right, finally, whoops, there it is. An apple a day keeps the doctor away, but an onion a day keeps everybody away. All right, so I love old sayings, and the reason I bring that up, well, first of all, old sayings usually have something true in them, and that's kind of what makes it funny. I mean, yeah, that's true, I get that. Here's the deal, though. There are sometimes sayings that we believe and we repeat, and they're not true. That's what I want to talk about. A saying that I just don't agree with. It comes from, and it reminded me I remembered this saying when we were going through the readings this week. If you're doing the Believe book readings, which prepares us for what we're talking about, then what was talked about in there reminded me of an old saying that's been passed around and thrown around quite a bit. Before I share that, let me just review real quick. We're learning to think like Jesus, act like Jesus, and become like Jesus. Right now, we're in the think part, but we're ending that today. This is the 10th week. There's 10 weeks for each of these. We've learned about different ways that Jesus wants us to think while we're here on earth. And what's really cool about this thinking like Jesus is, so far, everything has been about how to live here, thinking about life here. This last one, if you did your reading, you know, this last one is all about how to think about the future. And you can tell it's the last one, and it's like, well, let's throw everything we can into this one. If you did your reading, your head spun, because in 1 week, they're like, let's talk about everything that has to do with eternity. Whoa, how can you talk about something eternal in a short period of time? Doesn't that sound like a contradiction? So that's what we did. We're looking at eternity, but here's where the saying comes in, because it has to do with eternity. It's a saying you know, it's a saying you probably have said, it's a saying you probably have heard. Here it is. Some people are so heavenly minded that they are no earthly good. Some people are so heavenly minded that they are no earthly good. Have you heard that? Do you believe it? I actually don't. I have never liked this saying. I've heard it when I was little. Some people are so heavenly minded. I think the opposite is actually true. I think we need to be more heavenly minded. I think if we were more heavenly minded, we would worry less about things on earth, and we could actually do more good if we weren't so concerned about self. Does that make sense? If we're thinking about, hey, what's God got in store for us? Because God's got all these promises. He's promised some things that are pretty amazing. And if we would think about those things, maybe we wouldn't be so concerned about, do I have, do I not have I succeeded, what are my struggles? And concentrate more on helping people out through this life that is incomplete, this life that is not yet fulfilled. What if we actually believed that being heavenly minded would do us some earthly good? What if the more we keep our head up, the more we'd be able to deal with what's here on earth? If you're taking notes, this is your first blank. Let me just read it to you, because you won't find it up here. Every believer should be heavenly minded. Every believer should be heavenly minded because of the promises God has given us. And He's given us some pretty cool promises. And if we got that, if we were there, I really think that we would stop trying to build here on earth something great. We would start thinking about what could we build spiritually that would last forever? Through relationship, through family, through lives. All right, so let's talk about some promises. See if you agree with this. You don't have to agree with me, but let's see if I can build a case for it. So let's talk about some promises. The first promise, this is a pretty easy one to see, especially if you have a home, if you live in a home. There's this promise of a new home. Now, if you live in a home, it probably is a place where there's a lot of activity, a lot of memories, but it probably is a place that is incomplete. It's not finished. There's something that's dirty that needs to be cleaned, some piles somewhere, some mess somewhere else. There's this funky smell if you have pets. You know it's not there yet. It's not complete. There's probably trim that you've never finished. There's probably a project that you need to work on. There's something that drips that needs to be fixed. It's just you're not there yet, right? You're not living in that 5-star estate resort place where the paint's perfect, the funeral's nice, everything's wood trimmed, and it smells good. You're not there yet. And you might say, Jeff, I'm not trying to diss your home or anything. I'm just saying you're not there yet. It's not the perfection that we all desire. The reason we try so hard to make our home a nice place to live in is because we have this idea of what a home ought to look like. And for all of us, we're not there yet. It's incomplete. It's in process. You might say, well, now, Jeff, I have got a pretty good home. You should come over and take a look. I understand that. I get that. You may. In fact, I'm sure it's better than ours. But you still go on vacation somewhere else. If this was the best place ever, you wouldn't long for something else that you really couldn't afford anyway, but you can afford it for a week. You just can't afford it all the time. So you long for something, I long for something. Here's something that I do when I am out in, let's say, the woods, or I see a great vista view and mountains, and incredible mountains or a beach. There's so many pretty places in this world, and I've been blessed to see some of them. I have traveled, as a teenager, I got to travel all over Europe, which is such a treat. Most people don't get to do that. I saw some amazing, amazing places. I also got to travel all of the United States. I have not yet been to the Northeast. Outside of that, I've been everywhere. I haven't been to Alaska either, but outside of that, I've been everywhere else. The Virgin Islands, they don't count. So I've been everywhere else. And this country is amazing. I did travel most of it. I traveled across the country when I was 16 years old with my grandma. That was not as amazing as the trip itself. The trip itself was amazing. Actually, I love my grandma, but any of you traveling with your grandma that long. All right, that's all I have to say. So we had, this is an amazing country. Here's what happened as I traveled Europe and as I traveled the United States. The same thing. Every time I saw something new that was beautiful, gorgeous scene, incredible sights. Every time I saw something new, I started thinking about heaven. I don't know if you're like me, but I think about what God has promised us. There's some amazing promises in His Word, and I see something so cool. I start looking up. I start thinking about what must it be like there. This is just a glimpse here. When He changes all things and recreates all things and gives us something new, what's it going to be like? Because we don't get to hold on to this very long. We just have to store them up as memories, don't we? That's so cool in the moment. You just want to soak it all in. Oh, this week's going to last forever. I'm all of it. It's going to be so good. And then you're like 3 months down the road going, man, that went so quick. And all I got are these memories. And those are great memories. But what if you actually were there all the time in it? That's the promise, right? So that's where my mind goes. I hope that's eventually where your mind goes. Hey, let's get our mind off of earth onto heaven and think about the promises He has in store for us. When I pieced together some of these passages, I couldn't help but piecing together some images of heaven that kind of remind me of a 5-star resort. I just thought, okay, is this true that heaven is going to be even better than anything we've seen here? And I don't know if you've ever been to a 5-star resort. Absolutely incredible. To have that kind of service, to see that kind of detail, to be in that kind of luxury, it is amazing. You feel a little guilty, I never paid for the one I got to be a part of, so I didn't feel too guilty. But you do kind of feel guilty that others don't get to experience this, and this is what heaven's going to be like, even better. So let me just share. I just pieced these together quickly. Here's the idea. When we got to begin with the foundation of what this is like, and this foundation is decorated with every kind of precious stone, and it reveals to us each layer of the foundation, and it's all this expensive gems that God spared no expense on this resort. When you get up to the resort, there's these gates that are made of pearls, and pearls are iridescent, absolutely beautiful. But these are massive pearls that are actually gates, and you walk through all of this color and wonder, and then you look down at your feet, and you see this great street of pure gold, like transparent glass. You can't even express how that must look like. And you've got all this immaculate gardens and well taken care of lawns, and you've got all these rivers and such inside this resort, and we're told there's rivers there. The angel showed a river of water as clear as crystal. It says flowing from the throne of God and of the Lamb down the middle of the street of the city. It's just a beautiful place, and you're ushered past that into the estate mansion itself and carried up. Your bags are carried for you. You get bags in heaven. I don't know. It's just, I'm playing with this 5-star state. So you're in this resort, and you're going up to your room. It's a room that Jesus himself crafted for you. That's what we're told. In my Father's house are many rooms. If not so, I would have told you. Jesus isn't going to lie to you. I'm going there to prepare a place for you. The great carpenter is going to make you a room. Isn't that awesome? That is so cool. So, just you piece together some things and you start to see, hey, 5-star resort is coming for you. That's pretty cool. And if you have your eyes on heaven and you're thinking about what's coming, that small closet you have that doesn't fit all your shoes, Carrie, that doesn't matter, does it? No, not when you're thinking about heaven and the pipes that need to be fixed and the door that squeaks. It's not such a big deal. The hole the kids put in there and what the cats did on the carpet. Come on. Well, you should clean up what the cats did on the carpet. But why do you worry? Why do I worry? Do you remember the last time you went camping? For some of you, it was recently. I know because you weren't here last Sunday. For some, do you remember the last time you went camping? I'm talking roughing it camping, not like my wife camping. My wife grew up, this was her idea of camping. Holiday Inn, that's her idea of camping. No, I'm talking about roughing it camping. I took her camping and the family camping once. I was so excited. It's going to be like when I grew up, and it was a disaster. We've not been camping since. Holiday Inn, we've been to Holiday Inn. So last time you went roughing it camping, I'm not talking about air mattress camping. That's cheating. I'm talking on the ground in a tent where you wake up touching the side of the tent and you're all wet because of the dew of the morning. You know that kind of camping? And I'm talking real roughing it where there's not even an outhouse kind of camping. You got to be creative with your restroom choice. That kind of camping. Why'd you do it? Ange would say, I have no idea. Why do you do it? You do it because, hey, this is roughing it. It's temporary. What's coming is better when we get home. There's air conditioning, and there's a big comfy bed, and everything is running water. It's great. You rough it for a little bit, and it doesn't bother you. Think about living here as tent camping, because what's coming is better. You're just roughing it right now. Do the best you can to keep things in order, but hey, don't sweat it. You're just tent camping. Something better is coming. And what that does for us is it gets us off of ourselves and our needs and gets us more into what's going on with people around us, because that's what's really eternal. What's going to be in heaven is God's taking care of building that. You don't have to build it here. You don't have to build it here. God's building it for you. Just go ahead and enjoy people, and go ahead and enjoy others, and go ahead and serve them and love them here and now. It helps us not to be so selfish when we realize there's something better coming. The great carpenter is building us something better. Speaking of selfish, self-centered, there's another promise right there. Let me get there. The promise of new bodies. The promise of new bodies. You and I, we tend to worry a lot and work a lot on our appearance and our looks and our health, and whether we can get rid of this ache and pain and get this fixed that's broken. We struggle a lot with this life trying to keep it all together, because the reality is no matter how hard you work, time continues to march on, right? We worry about this body. Here's an old saying, so true. Eat well, stay fit, die anyway. Go ahead and post that one. It's true though, isn't it? We work and we work and we worry and yet it's all, the clock is ticking and it all goes downhill. So what if we actually were more heavenly minded and we realized there's this promise that God gives us that is glorious. There's a glorified body coming. It's everything that we've worked for, the money we spend on doctor bills to try to get the pains to go away, the money that we spend to try to stay fit and healthy, the time that we spend, the energy that we spend. What if instead we said, okay, we'll do our part, but then we're not going to worry about it. We're going to prioritize our lives in such a way that we spend more time worrying about and taking care of what's actually going to last, because God's got this. He's got something better for us coming, something that's altogether and perfect. In fact, let's look at what Paul said about our bodies. He says, now we know that if this earthly tent, see, we're just tent camping here, this earthly tent that we live in, and he's talking about our tents being our actual flesh, our bodies. So in Sunday school class, we used the analogy of a glove. Your body is like a glove, and when you die, that glove is removed and laid in the ground. It's lifeless, but you continue on, and then God gives you a new glove. He gives you a new body. What Paul is using is the tent analogy. He says, look, the tent is your body we live in, and if it's destroyed, you die, basically. We have a building from God. God's going to give us something better, an eternal house, not something that fades away or wears away or dies, but something eternal in heaven, not built by human hands. He goes on, he says, for while we are in this tent, we groan and are burdened because we do not wish to be unclothed. That is so true. If you've ever watched a loved one struggle, even though they're at peace with God and they're ready, and they'll even tell you, I'm ready to see Jesus, their body still fights to live, because we don't want to be unclothed. We don't want to leave this tent, even though it's temporary. We're made to live. But what he's saying is, look, even though we don't want to be separated, we do want to be clothed with our heavenly dwelling. We desire so badly to be glorified and perfect. Everything that we didn't like will be fixed. Everything that was broken will be healed. Everything that was wrong would be made right. What God has in store for us is glorious and beautiful, so that what is mortal may be swallowed up by life. He says this, so will it be with the resurrection of the dead. The body that is sown perishable, this is perishable, we know that. It fades, it dies, is raised imperishable, will not fade, will not die. Is sown in dishonor, this body is dishonorable compared to the glory that is coming, because he says it's raised in glory. Think about the model that you admire. I mean, you look at her body and you're like, oh man, no, I'm not talking about guys. Girls look at this body, you guys keep your eyes off that body. But think about, I wish I had. Wait. Think about next time you see that body, just think about this. Just say, that is dishonorable. I don't know if it'll help you. Just try it. Let me know. But think about this. If even the best model, best actor, whoever you admire, even if that person is gorgeous and the prettiest thing, the cutest thing, whatever, that, Paul says, is it's dishonorable compared to the glory that's coming. Think about the glory that is coming for you in Christ Jesus. That kind of lifting your eyes off this world, you wouldn't be so focused and so worried about this life, right? It's sown in a natural body, it's raised in a spiritual body, and this body is without pain, it's without hurt, it's without lack, it's without need. He'll wipe every tear from our eyes. There will be no more death, mourning, crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. We're going to be made new. We're going to be made new. And so, if we had minds and eyes to see heaven and all that God has in store, we wouldn't be so worried about our condition here. Now, I know. Paul gives Timothy some great advice. Young Timothy, he tells, hey, look, you need to take care of your body, but don't get overly concerned about it. Don't make that your number one priority. Take care of your soul, because it has benefit in this life and the life to come. You will work and work and work, and your body will be buried. But your soul goes on forever, and that's the true person of who you are, and it's where you should be the most beautiful and most pretty and most handsome, and it's where you really, really are. It's where your beauty comes from. It's your character. Because God is going to give you a glorified body to match that character. And that should lift your eyes off of this world. All right, one more. Let's do one more. How about the promise of a new reality? A new reality. What's our reality here now? Well, there's a lot of crime, there's a lot of hatred, there's a lot of body shaming, there's a lot of bullying, there's a lot of terrorism, there's a lot of disappointment, there's a lot of wrong being celebrated as right. Seems like everything is upside down according to the order that God desires life to be, right? Even the best that live a right life sometimes suffer and die, and so there's another old saying I'd like to share with you. You may know this guy. He's a wise theologian of old. He's Billy Joel. He says, "Only the good die young." And sometimes that seems so true, right? Everything seems to be backwards in the world that we live in. And yet God is the God of justice. He promises justice. In the new reality, all that's wrong will be made right. Now, understand that justice has two sides to it. You either think of justice as helping the poor and helping those in need, or you think of justice as the people that are wrong or that are living in sin are punished. And actually, both of those understandings are correct. Justice has two sides to it. It's making what's wrong right. Righteousness and justice actually are the same words. We need to realize that it's not us who are going to make things right. God will make things right. In fact, He promises to do that. And if you've been wronged, take courage, He says. Don't take revenge, my friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it's written, "It is mine to avenge. I will repay," says the Lord. He's the one that is going to enact justice. And He says He will. So He says, "For He has set a day when He will judge the world with justice by the man He has appointed. He has given proof to this." That man, by the way, is Jesus Christ. "He has given proof of this to all men by raising Him from the dead." So when Jesus rose from the dead, not only did He raise victorious over sin, but He was affirmed by God as the one who would bring justice to the world. He will judge rightly. And of course, that justice means those who have wronged you will be repaid, will receive their punishment for that. But justice has two sides. And so those who have lived for God but have received hurt and have received wrongs and have received the wrong end of the stick in this life, He says, look, even by your own sin that you've caused, even what you have done to create the pain in your life, or what others have done to you and created pain in your life, will be repaid. He says this, "I am making everything new." Everything's going to be new. Everything's going to be changed. Everything's going to flip to be right. And He goes on and He gives this promise to Joel, a prophecy that I absolutely love this prophecy. "I pay you for the years the locusts have eaten." Now that seems like an obscure prophecy, doesn't it? But here's the idea. The locusts were a plague for the sins of Israel. And what was promised was, even though you made bad choices in life, I'm going to repay you for the damage that is done if you trust me. Meaning that not only is He going to give us a home that we didn't deserve, a new home, or a new body that we didn't deserve, He's going to give us back the time that was taken from us. He is going to repay everything we've lost. And that is really, really cool. So, the promise that God gives us of a new reality is something that's worth us keeping our eyes on heaven. Look towards heaven. Be heavenly minded. Because if you are thinking about the promises of a new reality where He makes all things right, it gives you the ability to endure when things are unjust. We see it all the time. We see it all over the place. There's all kinds of stuff that's unjust today. But it gives you the ability to endure that injustice, because you know God's going to make it right. He gives us hope. And hope is something that is not just wishful thinking when it's hoped in the Lord, because He is a promise keeper. We can trust His character. Hope in the character of God means it will come to pass. And we have hope that all things that are wrong will be made right. So we need to change our thinking about eternity. We need to lift our eyes and be more heavenly minded so we can be more earthly good. We need to have our mind changed in the areas of where we live and who we are and what is truly real. But we need something else. Because all these things are true, but there's another issue that is raised when we start to think about eternity. And it's this idea that if there's a heaven, there's also a hell. Right? The reality that is coming is that all will be judged outside of Christ. So that creates for us this tremendous urgency. The promises of God are so good for us. And we should desire those same promises for those that we work with or those in our family who just don't have their eyes on heaven. And we should do whatever we can to help them to be more heavenly minded, to think more about Jesus, and to reach out to them. Because the reality is, while we want them so badly to be in heaven, if heaven is real, so is hell. And everything that hell represents, separation from God, agony, outer darkness, gnashing of teeth, whatever that means, it's real. So we should be a people who think about eternity not only for our benefit, but for the benefit of your coworker, for the benefit of your friend, for the benefit of your family member who just isn't thinking about Jesus and eternity. So why don't you talk to them? Why don't you just write their name down on your piece of paper and not let that paper out of your sight until you talk to them about eternity? And maybe you're here this morning and you need to talk about your own eternity. There is a God who loves you so much that he cannot stand to have you apart from him. That's why he sent his son to die for you. And when he died for you, he bled for you. His blood was poured out for you. That's what we just celebrated when we picked up these emblems of a piece of bread representing his body broken open and a cup representing his blood spilled for you. That's how much he loves you. That's how much he can't stand to be apart from you. As severe as that might sound, hell is even more severe. He did it to save you from hell, so why don't you respond and receive this gift of Jesus' death for you? He took your place on the cross. So I'm going to give you an invitation to come and respond to the message of Christ. He's offering himself to you right now. I'm going to ask that you stand with me, and we're going to pray for decisions. Father God, we ask for you to be glorified today. We know that you have a promise of a future glorification for all of us, and you're willing to share your glory with us. It's absolutely amazing. A new home just amazes us. New bodies just amaze us. A new reality where all things are set right. And I know there's so many more promises. But the greatest promise is absolute forgiveness of all our sins in Christ Jesus. That when the book of life is opened, our names are written there in the blood of Christ because of what he did on the cross. For those that are not there yet, I pray their names are written in today. Draw them forward. Help them to surrender themselves to you, to give themselves fully to the gracious gift of Jesus' death on the cross. We ask for this in Jesus' name. Amen. As the team sings, will you come? If you have a decision this morning, just come.